I think to some extent it's none of my business because I'm in Africa. You get it? Yeah, I know it's not a laughing matter. You see, my main concern is if African leaders or Africa at large is learning something from this war between Russia and Ukraine. I hope you get what I'm saying. Please stick with me. Stick with me. Let me tell you something. I hope our African leaders are learning that their views on Russia-Ukraine war do not matter. You know it deep down your heart. You may even refuse. You may say, no, actually, we matter. No, you don't matter. You don't matter. No, you don't matter. Actually, you have no say in that war between Ukraine and Russia. You have no say. I'm telling you, I'm in for who? Your job right now is to just make sure that you get your people, whoever is that side, you get them out of that place. That is your job right now. And you're finding it very difficult to get your people out of that place because you don't have that much power and you don't have that much resources. And yet, Africa as a continent is powerful. But where is your power now? I mean, for who? Eh? Trust me, believe me, not every African person who is in Ukraine or in Russia would love to even come back to Africa and settle back here because of that war. It's the truth, I'm telling you. Ask them if they want to come back home. They don't want to come back home. I mean, for who? You know why? It's because as African leaders, we have not made our continent a place that a person can really enjoy to be in. I'm telling you, I mean, for who? People feel in Africa, no one can succeed. You only have to succeed when you're out there. In your own continent, you can't succeed. That's what most Africans feel. Do you know that in Africa, it's an achievement for an African person to travel out, to go and live in the States, in Europe, in Australia, wherever they go, as long as it's out of Africa? Do you know that it's an achievement? Even when you're going to do nonsense out there, people consider you, you have traveled out. That's an achievement. That's how sad it has become for us Africans. I'm telling you. It's very sad for Africans. Because over a decade now, none of them has thought of making Africa a more comfortable place for an African to live in. It's the truth, whether you like it or not. And you know what I'm saying is the truth. Let me even give you this task, African leaders. How much do you invest in technology in your country? If I was to ask you, African leaders, how much do you invest in technology in your own countries? How much do you invest in technology?
Nothing.
I've never heard in my country where people are talking about, no, we have dedicated this much to science and technology. We have dedicated this much to discovering new things. We have dedicated this much to creating new things. Nothing. You will never hear of it. I'm telling you. I mean, for who? Which country? African country. Discovering something. Dedicating their resources to discover something. Huh? Which African will do that? Coronavirus broke out. I don't know what's happening now. No one is even talking about it. I don't know if it has disappeared. But anyway, coronavirus brought out. It exposed Africa to the brim. I'm telling you. Africa was exposed. We are just seated there. We are not ready to discover anything. We are not ready to invent anything. We are not ready to come up with anything. Our job is just to eat and die. Eat and die. We are not ready to do anything. There are so many brilliant minds in Africa, but no government is ready to invest in them. You know why? Because we are used to asking people, can you give us some? We are asking for. We are asking for. Can you lend us? We are going to pay back. That is our job as Africans. How much have you invested in trading amongst yourselves as Africans? We trade less than 15%. The whole Africa, we trade amongst ourselves less than 15%. The rest would rather trade with others out of the continent. Full of resources around them. They will have resources around them. But they will still complain and say, no, Russia and Ukraine were fighting. That is going to be an excuse. It will be a song. You will hear it very soon. If not, some of you are already hearing it. Oh, sad for you. I know it's not funny. My laughter sometimes just comes on and off. I don't know why. But it is what it is. The whole continent of Africa, the whole of it, they will blame it on Russia and Ukraine. On their own, they can't survive, no. As Africans, we have not... Up to now, we are still blaming people, not because of slavery, not because people are stealing resources. Are they stealing now? Your job is to complain, no, they are stealing. No one is stealing, my dear. You are allowing them to take and not bring back anymore or much. Yes, you know what I'm talking about. Eh? African leaders, I hope you are paying attention to this war. Imagine the whole African leaders, they should start complaining about the economy going bad. They start being worried about the economy going bad because some country somewhere or some continent somewhere is fighting. What about you as a continent? Why are you not self-sustaining yourselves? We have oil, we have all these minerals, oil, nickel, whatever, gold, everything is in Africa. But we are still dependent on some continent. We are still dependent on some country. We are still dependent on some people. African leaders. For how long? Can you make your continent comfortable for your own people so that they don't crave to move out, so that traveling out is not an achievement? African leaders, I hope this war between Russia and Ukraine is teaching you something, African leaders. Right now, some of you are even losing sleep.
They don't even have time to listen.
You're losing sleep because you know you're dependent on them. Imagine you're living in a home, your own home. Your neighbor is fighting and you're worried if you're going to eat in your own home. Just imagine that. Let it sink in your heads. Let it sink. Some of you have...
Very important point. Especially to us Gambians. What this man is saying is very important. The war between Ukraine and Russia, if the African leaders are listening or even aware.
Leaders right now, you are scared. You can't make your own decisions. You are influenced to make a decision. We know you.
You know, somebody like him and me, when we talk about African leaders, Africa in general, be it my country, your country, what did they have in common? Why are we where we are today? God has blessed us, Africa, with everything. But what did we do? What did we do to deserve where we are today? Let us listen.
Be ashamed. Yeah, I'm laughing as if it's funny. It's not funny, no. I'm sad as an African. Some of you can't make a wise decision to even just talk against the war. You can't say anything against the war because you know the moment you do, you are going to suffer. African leaders, what are you doing to make your continent comfortable for your people? Now listen, I'm not wishing war upon any continent. No, I'm not wishing that. It's the worst thing a continent or a country can go through, war. It's the worst. And it's a very sad thing. All I'm saying is that as Africans, the fact that us, we have no say in this matter, we should learn something as African leaders. I'm telling you, wake up and start thinking of making that one Africa, that one strong Africa. Because the day that this world is in shambles, African leaders, we'll learn. Life is hard, I'm telling you. It's the truth. You don't like to hear it, but I'm telling you. I want what's good for Africa.
Life is hard everywhere.
Or whoever's children to enjoy this place. Some clever chap went and divided this African continent into so many countries. So many borders put across you. You can't even cross to another country. To your own brothers, you can't cross to go and say hi to your own brothers. You need to carry some papers. You need to go through some checking. Your own African brothers, you can't visit them easily. You know why? Some clever chap said if these people became united, they will be very strong. They know. This is the only continent with so many currencies. You kwacha, SSD, dollar, what do you know, shilling, whatever. They have made all those things. It's not an African doing by having all those things. It's not an African doing, no. African leaders, what are you doing about your continent to make it a superpower? What are you doing?
Good question.
That should challenge you as a human being. Should sit down and think and say, what are we doing to make our continent great? As Africans, I'm telling you. There's so much rubbish that we tolerate as Africans. I'm telling you. That is the truth. It will hurt. But you know deep down your heart that it is true. You even be saying, he's just talking. He doesn't understand how this world works. Yes, it's because you have chosen to be at the bottom. As long as we have these borderlines, we will never be a superpower in Africa. I'm telling you. You know it's deep down your hearts.
But in Gambia, uncle, Yen Sumamboke Gambia, Manglena New si Subasini from Grantham, United Kingdom. They litama play video bini is because of waji comedian la ak num neke comedy. Yip nga xamne ñun Africa suñ problème fu nekk lañ ko nu nekk lañ ko dee waxee ñii di ko woyee ñii defee ko comédie suma maasi di toog si plateforme di ko wax mbaɗigol mbota min fola tem wolem ñin tin kañum video min play ten ñim fana mo african dole te mi yalon ko ala africa problème aka fintindinan ning jelende kuwol la wala tinna ala video commencé nin jelola fente foyte mi mo africano te ni jibe ni fan jibe ye africa jibe abe dunia abe lorin dunia kono nyamin aning ntol talta dunia e ko mala nyamin wortalo jelobe dunne kono katu munem ikungo fango ita understand la no minati na africa tarata abe damin to bi nien african leaders will jibe itolbe ñin tubabol bulo kono nyamin bar tubabol fanan fonin tol mimbe tubabu du jan tol mimbe sirin tubabol koto sanji muwan ntolle fanan sa fono wali tubabol fanan kono be nyaadile walem tubabol fanan kono controlo mimbe africa ntolla leaders wol be min ke kan tolla tubabol fanan be wala ke kan ila banku dingol bari wol fanan kono mojelle ya kala mutako ila politicianol mine be marari la bankola ibe min kekan amansiya komintol gambianol be nyamin wol fanan be tubabol fanan be wala nyama bari ñing kelo min be Ukraine ning Russia tema foy ke kala mutalati wotole sena long kelo min be ñim banko flol tema amanke keloti fang yaani bari nim manke ko abe na labanna kelole la kato bi Ukraine be daminto anin Russia la fita minna anin Euro la fita minna fo moye wol be long folong isena lono yena jibe ñin ko be tala ndaminna bari ntol be ñin dunia min to teng ka damin fo Euro ndebe Angleterre le dolbe Germany dolbe France ñin satel ñin lem aning America ñin le yati nabi dunia be daminto abe wonyama fente foytol fanam biring abota dunia kelola Hitler min create Hitler lafta ala bankole la fansotola bira e kelo kumasi den wokono atambita wotola say nga je ko nga silo sotola say impro akana dan na banko damala mimbe mbala nga wo fananta nga la fanta kan ñine keta Hitler la so tata faje ko say nse dunia be kovanole ninga dunia be ta nge konka ibe tarlan ko tole say nde financer mara ba ni ajibe amu maya politician olti mi ya lonka kumasi ala banko kumasi da dami nimi ya jibe do resalonko Hitler mo politician olti mira role dunta kono birin woset anata kono aya jibe ate wuli ase mol sotono nyamin ase kelo ase kuol min wulindi no la banko kan puru ay wo sambo soto lafta minna wolem ay luntangol minni jebe la banko occupy kan bitikol na fultiol ate yaji jelta koy be mu luntangol leti na lalem to wotala kumasi ala political start wall bara man na dangala banko ta dunta duniya kono biri wo kelol banda nyindol fana ya commencé cook ya te cookilingo leke bi wala be Russia ning euro tema euro itolni Russia bele kelo ke wo wato puruka Hitler stop bari ya jele biri wo banda itol da mal nata ka dunyo koto kanyo sembo do yandi bi nyinen problem odi biri yur o wulda yenyin satel min bebe Russia dandangol la ni mini be Russia koto ye domon diamundi pour ye bondi Russia la mararo koto bar woman kanyam biri bota wodo itol euro nate katata wolla yes ye la mirarol dundi wol kono den ya kumasi ka kuwol ke mimbe tinala Russia ya jeko itol la sembobe jikanne pour kay Russia la kuwol fadron but niya jibe bin tolla media balanta nka minni tandi mainstream media bi abedaminto yentol control because hani YouTube min anim Facebook min kala use fango wol fango yentol control le puru mbe kibarol minita lambe janjandi la nyem platform olto before nyin kelobe kumasi lan tolnga access min soto kibarol to bi ma wo kibarol soto tubabu du jam katu minem mbe tubabu du ma fango minna wol mal lafi Russia ma fango kam minni fo ntol kala moy so wayatina ye Russia television all stop janne news wo news yaronko ika Russia la kumole fo ntol ma wo soto sign because minem nka soto damintos YouTube lem wala Facebook ninga kiji hanin defanga ketan na le na timeline oto ndata nga Ukraine la president wala speech o nga nga uploading na timeline oto no before mbate ta kila fango nga Vladimir Putin la fango ta kiji iba interview kan na minga bala story for la mi ati na nyin kelo kumasi anem min baning ni European all tema so bidding nga wota nga share na Facebook platform oto wotole Facebook yang contact katandin nako false news man allow bar biri ye wosafe nte nga jibe nko nyembe kila false news ti nyadi le bawo Russian president o wala be diamuka ibe wala interview kan be diamuka so woketa false news ti nyadi le hana tara aka mimfo amandi e tolie imalla fi mol ya moy imanya na tala ka foko false news lem because hani kiti dulato ni tataje ika kara flow bele la diamo moy folon isena kiti oteno bari ni tolko ntol mini be jamma fangol la momon be ma fango minna ikana wodol la kibaro soto saying mbe tonya lon na nyaadile ho birim bada woto nada Ukraine la president wala speech ota nga wo finance aji biri nga wo seaji then hanisa yenna video mi ngaki je mimu Russia la president wala speech ota biri ye wo block wo ko la nata Ukraine la president wata kije biri nga wo kije ima wo block ima fonye ko wo mu false news leti ndefana nga ito Facebook jabi nko eko saying ning Russia president wala be diamo kanjang journalist ba interview kan wo be kala false news ti nyaadile fo saying a lafta fo la nyele ko Putin ka min befo wuli yalem bari ate feala nintol nata ngamin soto altol la karola nga wo kiji altem block la but ninga Russia tal kiji alien accuse ko mbe false news le spread kan so nga bulaje fo bi se lo le nata je Facebook ya allow because nga le fango sitale maluta iko say ninyi Ukraine la president wala speech okta ya kijan mam fem fay then ay Russia ta kiji nata nga la video blog so bin tolbe Angleterre wala nyama sa konte mi yalon ko metere ka kibaro ta dulalto miniketa Dion tolbe daminto dunia kibaro be nteka be satle. Bari hani nyung coronavirus min fango mbota kono. Biring nte lafta tonya sinna mbe tonya sinkan. Side dol bije mang alaw nga futaji. Fente fontol mimbe euro kono iman lafi ka kuol nunto la nameng. So euro fana mbe controlo le kono katu. Bi nimbe siring kelobe nyin sate flol tema Ukraine ni Russia tema. Ntol mimbe Europe mbuka tonya sotono mimu tonya ti mbuka kibaro sotono dulal beto purunga mfonga ala naisi mfaye nga jibe nyim problemo be nyadil. So ntol beka bendaminto mimu Facebook ti aning YouTube ning ye wall control sign tola democracy bentol block on nyadil. This is the question. And I'm speaking this, what I'm trying to say in my language is that the unfairness and the control with Facebook and YouTube. When you call yourself democratic and you say there's a free world that we can meet in a social platform and discuss the affairs of the world we live in and our countries as well, why should you control us with news to listen to? Which articles we can share within each other? If I believe that I want to hear the Russian side of the story, of their story or their war against Ukraine, and I read it and I find it interesting, if I want to share that with my friends, why would Facebook tell me that it is a fake news? I think they have to leave it to us to decide whether it is a fake news or not. And we cannot decide that unless and until we hear from the both sides. If we hear from the Ukrainian president, we need to hear from the Russian president as well. Why he started the war. What is his problem with the NATO? What is his problem? And when it started. Because this is where I want my research to go. Who is Putin? From when he was a child or a boy from school, what he has done. Then I understood. Since when he was in school, he wanted to be a KGB agent. And he achieved that. But today, if I cannot stand here and share with my friends and family what I think, then what's the point of me being on the social media? And I have been on the social media for a long time, since 2014. You've never blocked me, although you've once warned me when I talked about China in Africa. I use a word that suits me, but it doesn't. It's not allowed on a public platform. Because all what I said was, let's get rid of the Chinese in Africa. So that get rid is not allowed. And I understood when Facebook contacted me that it is a word that is not allowed. I said, okay. But I believe that as an African, I have every right, if not only Chinese, if some people, foreign people are in our country or on our continent doing wrong, then I have the right to awaken my brothers and sisters, to tell them exactly how that those people are bad to us and what they are doing to us. But today, my knowledge about Africa is not only the Chinese. The Chinese just came yesterday. I know what the West and America has done to us and what they are still doing to us. The reason we are where we are today is not created by Russia, it's not created by anybody but the West and America. Until today, I believe that the struggle in my country, the difficulty in my country, which is the Gambia, West Africa, it is caused by the British and American. Because if you had it been to our country and meet our ancestors and bring your education, your tradition, then today you would have not been in our country. Today you would have not been controlling our culture our traditions. You are the ones that are behind, even our own people that comes to us to discourage us, our traditions and our cultures in our country. And you did not do that because you love us, because you wanted us to continue to depend on you. So the problem in the Gambia today, I will say, as I am saying today. And if you ask me, as a Gambian, how I will run that country if I happen to be the president, the first thing, it is you, the British and Americans, and the Europeans as well, because the euro in itself, it's a problem. I will look at our relationship very well. And I will turn the table in a way that it won't favor you. And maybe you will pack your bags and come home. Because the reason you stay there is because you are still benefiting. Slave trade, you brought it to us. After slave trade, you decide to colonize us. You colonize us. After the colonization, you know we are waking up. So you decide, after colonizing these people, what else can we do to continue controlling them? That's when you start, long before we even talk about independence. You try to insert your education into us, to learn about your language, your way of life, because you know that if we learn about you, your culture, your language, in our schools, we will be depending on you. That's dependent, is what Gambia is today. And we will continue to depend on you, the British and Americans, until we, the Gambians, understand that we were going wrong. From the time you, the British and Americans, stepped onto our soil in the Gambia. But unless we, the Gambians, understand that you are not the friend we think you are, and I know you know that the very reason, since when I was a child, I saw you, the Americans, you insert your Peace Corps everywhere in our country, including the last village in the Gambia. It doesn't matter how you announce, how you call us poor, malnutrition, you talk about it in our country. But however difficult or hard, poor our country is, you insert your people from the cities, you insert them in those poor areas. What are they doing there? Because since I was a child, I heard about Peace Corps in the Gambia. Everything that is happening in my country today, I don't see how it helps us. Because since I was born, I saw people like my mother, how they were striving to feed us, how poor they was. And until today, I grow up, becoming an old man, I'm still seeing the same caliber of my people in the Gambia. Today, if I look at the murders that are selling in the markets, the poor women that rally behind these politicians as they need their votes, these are the same people I saw when I was a little boy going out with my mom. My mom too was active in politics. She was a good supporter of PPP. And my father was a silent supporter. He was supporting NCP in Bakau. For decades, I have been seeing this politics in our environment. But what have they done for us in the Gambia today? So this is why I said, the mind that I have, if I was the president of the Gambia, I will turn the table. But that turning will be very difficult for everybody, because the Gambians that are used to the way they are living now, depending onto the outside world. We'll find another way to survive. But you, the British and the American also, you will lose, because what you insert in us will come off, and we, the Gambians, will go back to have our own independence. And we will have that by depending on ourselves, not you. Then we wouldn't have the IMF and the World Bank telling us how we run our government. Our governments are run by finance, our finance. If you control our finance, you still control us. So everything we do in the Gambia today, including our government, is what you ask us to do. Our governments cannot even function without you, the British and Americans. So this is my story, and I want to share it with as much people as possible. We, the Africans, we have to change. And the way we have to change is for us to unite and understand the fact that we are still under control. Badingol, Bemimfo can be selo wolem nyintiko. Na Africa Banko, Mantarata kan kuke. Bini ajibe President Barrow benyi yayo mimbela na Banko kan. Biringa batu fo quartier fay wato sita kotenge. Biri wo quartier fayo botala mam President Barrow jay toked hanika fintin tol Gambianol fongo kan ka fonye. Ateka nyin ganye minkete nga ben na Banko sambala nyaming. Hani saye nga mam fem fontolie word. Bari campaign sita dorong ay to start kotenge. Woto abe wola atata lo platform o kan akatandin tol Gambianol lako. Ate danna nyen sanji lulo damala. Bar sanji lulu Jamal bin Alamiya lonko ate be continue la leka ke president oti Gambia. Oto mbadi ngol to nyantam fanji bela bakele de. Nyantam fanji bela bakele. Ndol bin na mol bebe kumbola fengol dala kuyala na Banko kan. Balu wala koleya Banko kan. But ninko alna nga kafunyola nga finti. Nte moja la. Par wo finto wala be femfalin na Banko kande. Katu nyini beda minto ya mira ko yentol control le fa pareta. Wala ti na karre fayo nanata. Ise confidence oto. Ni winta woto fanang. Ila wo confidence killing wala be continent la ya fo control be mela le kanyem Banko mara. Nse sanji muankije, nse sanji tansabakije. Yena muna problem oti mbadingol. Indo ninko ngam famma ko ifanga ba woto. Alimbala nana. Sorry? What do you want to eat?
I want to eat soup for breakfast.
Say the gentleman, I come in peace.
What do you want to
My
eat for
brother
breakfast?
is out there. I come in peace, gentlemen. No matter how intelligent you think you are,
Hey,
no matter
come
how
here.
wise you think you are,
What do you want
no
to
matter
eat?
how good you are, you think you can make decisions.
What cereal?
The moment you decide to begin a relationship
Which one? Go and show me.
with a lady that has no sense, my brother, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. automatically, I don't know if it's nature, even you become a nonsense person. Yeah, life is hard, but it is what it is. I mean, for who? I'm telling you, gentlemen, trust me. It's different with the ladies. A lady can go out with a very stupid, nonsensical man, but the children will want to suffer. They will still find something to eat. But the moment a man goes out with a very dull lady, a very nonsense lady, idiotic of a person, my brother, I wish you all the best. Yeah, be careful who you are making relationships with. I'm telling you, even just girlfriend and boyfriend. Some of you gentlemen out there, you look foolish because of your girlfriend. I'm telling you, I can even mention names here, but I just don't want. Yeah, I want peace. Short commercial break. Have you registered with 𝗹𝗲𝗀𝗋? If not, now is the time to register with 𝗹𝗲𝗀𝗋 and make sure it's the promo code African Joker to qualify for that 200% bonus just for you. 𝗹𝗲𝗀𝗋 is the best betting platform out there. And in case you have any questions or queries, you simply join the Telegram group where somebody will be there to attend to you. Plus, in the Telegram group, they share betting tips, giving you the best betting experience out there. And guess what? You can also download the 𝗹𝗲𝗀𝗋 app so you can enjoy betting the easy way. 𝗹𝗲𝗀𝗋, giving you the best betting experience out there. Now back to the issue. So like I was saying, gentlemen out there, trust me, you can't just be out there, picking every human jack for a partner. Huh? It is just foolishness in the making, I'm telling you. And I'm not even talking about intelligence for school. No, she has a degree. No, she has a PhD. No. I'm talking about intelligence for human beings. Otherwise, my dear, yeah, maybe she has that PhD. You look foolish, my brother. That's me, gentlemen out there. Because let me tell you something. A lady's downness is special. In case you didn't know, I'm telling you right now. A lady's downness and stupidness and nonsenseness is special because ladies' downness is very toxic. I'm telling you. How stupidness will start showing on you. You get it, huh? Yes. How stupidness will start showing on you. No matter what you do. But a man's downness is not toxic the way a lady's downness is. No, it's not. A man's downness sticks to a man. It ends with him. There, he just becomes foolish, stupid and dumb like that. That's a man. It stays with him. It can't spill over to a lady. Be wise when you are choosing a woman. I'm telling you. All of a sudden, you are that intelligent guy. All of a sudden, you start feeling down. Some of you gentlemen out there, you feel down because of your partners. Just look at your partner. Look at her. Look at her. How do you feel?
You're showing yourself in my video.
No, I just walked past. I didn't know.
Yeah.
You didn't know?
That's right.
No, I just walked past.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I just walked past. I didn't
Right,
know.
Daddy.
I don't believe you.
Yeah. Bye.
You walk in my video. Tijan,
Yeah.
stop it. Are you gonna use this? Right. Don't help yourself.
Yeah. I'm free. Oil my mouth. Yeah.
Listen, it's like last time when I talked about your ex, someone here did not listen. I want you to listen very carefully about this one. Because I will not talk about your exes anymore. Let me tell you something. I mean, for who is for An ex is the devil's child. Whether you like it or not, yes. Don't just be surprised like, no. An ex is the devil's child. Yes, I say. I'm telling you. The moment you leave and the other one leaves you, or you leave them or they leave you, believe me, that person becomes the devil's child in your life. I'm telling you.
That's what you get for doing this.
Full of reputation. I'm telling you. What are you going to be talking about? Is someone that you remove. You have removed the clothes before. You have been naked before with them. You have been doing back.
Stop it.
What are you going to be talking about with them?
Dad.
Tell me, make me understand something there. Let us be honest. Let us be open. You people are doing it. You are even breathing and shouting on top of each other. Oh, take me. Oh, it is nice. What are you going to be talking about with your ex? What are you going to be talking about? There's nothing to talk about. Please don't quote me wrong on this one. I'm not saying go out there and be enemies with your ex. No, that's not what I'm saying. No, in fact, that's what I'm saying. You and your ex, you need to be enemies. Yes, you've heard I've said it. You need to be enemies. I mean, for who? It ain't there. You just used to know each other. Now it has become past tense. Used to. That is English. Yeah, life is hard. But it is what it is. Short commercial break. Have you registered with OneXBet? If not, now is the time to register with OneXBet and make sure it's the promo code African Joker to qualify for that 200% bonus just for you.
Africa. What do we do to deserve where we are today? My dear African brothers, we have to sacrifice and bring this change in our continent. The control is too much. And we have to put an end to it. Let us listen to...
What's on your radar? What is going on with this war in Ukraine? It should have been over by now through negotiations. Putin's demands have been mostly straightforward, and many think they're doable, and some even believe them to be fairly reasonable. Most importantly, he hasn't changed them since this war began.
Sai na problemo.
Various leaders in China, France,
Ika woje ni Ukraine problemo leto. Dolmin dalta news sotola dula beto sign. BBC News lem wobuka kuma kese fontolie. Ilaftan tolmin be Angleterre ilaftan a mem moy. Walem ko itolbe kukurungol mindi kekan. Ntolka woje ko wo muko betolati. Wale tolka mem fontolie ntolka la wola. So walati na hani kibaro fango. Ibuka la fi abedaminto nyenko mimbe kere Ukraine te ibuka la fi bantala kibaro yena Angleterre. Yaje. So walati na Sakonte mi yalon ko wotu mondal tale ka news ol bondi Al Jazeera wolto RT nyolto Russia la television olto hani biri wotu monte lata Russia nol ni ntati la television olto nkantulo lo ila news la nka believe jele to konte ka kumo min fango moy woto to nyaabe wala kono dan nde fango be banko min ka memo Angleterre nka kumol mini moyje fende Foy tolye kuriya min beke nyin duniya kono. Bi nyin ko min beke ring Ukraine teng. Ika min be donki lan tolye nyin news olto teng. Coming. BBC nka kuma sifal mini moyje. Ni tata yem news dol jibe. Ye platform dol jibe. Fefe mantara nyin tubabol koto ye wala opinion ol jibe. Bring India lambang. Yaji. Ani Russia mi ka fote. Yeta, how to call it? Banis Rai World Olto. Yaja. You will an American old fanam mo ibe mim fola about NATO to. Anin told mim famoya long ko inatan tole la bankol kang. Yaji, yen tol colonize. Nata. Ndebe wolle kon. Baniaje bi, ndebuka nana, nga depend to babola kibarol fango kan kotenke nde fango nga jele nga sutero leke yemin ken tol mo fingol fangola fo bi ntol benyamin tarata wonya in the woman ke fenti fo tol nyin tubabol kilingol nyin neto min aning America min mbe moy ka mini ben control kan ben tulo lola min na fango ila banko kan wala multi mini dunia ta ya manen de biabe manere nyame Kukurungol mini bekata dunia mini wajabita katambi mimbe kere Ukraine nying tubabol itolle woke wo hadama dingol nga Iraq jale nga Libya jale hani bi mbe bi min konoteng Yemen mi yalon ko abe Saudi Arabia bala ibe muslimol Saudi Arabia wolni la mismeya mume be wo Yemen kolbe wo bo batamin be konoje Femmatine me makoy foy ben ininyin tubabol min na ko be nyokoto yaje America Britain Germany France blah blah wala yatin Saudi Arabia na la Saudi Arabia ya imang makoy al hekato mbadi ngol ngal no hello
Rồi, mà tạm chưa cả. Dạ,
Yes, very likely follow. So, yes, so then I will call you.
No, I'm moving. Look at me. Or you have the exact same as me.
Administration official who had a private event
Careful,
earlier
not
this month
to-
stated, the only end game now is the end of the Putin regime. Until then, all the time Putin stays, Russia will be a pariah state that will never be welcomed back into the community of nations. China has made a huge error in thinking Putin will get away with it. Seeing Russia get cut off will not look like a good vector, and they'll have to reevaluate the Sino-Russia axis. All this is to say that democracy and the West may look back on this as a pivotal strengthening moment, unquote. I'd like to know when, in the past 70 years since World War II, the U.S. has strengthened democracy and bettered the lives of people by engaging in proxy wars. When have any of them been pivotal, strengthening moments for the West? Hillary Clinton also alluded to this bleed them out strategy last month while on MSNBC.
But remember, the Russians invaded Afghanistan back in 1980. And although no country went in, they certainly had a lot of countries supplying arms and advice and even some advisors to those who were recruited to fight Russia. It didn't end well for the Russians. There were other unintended consequences, as we know, but the fact is that a very motivated and then funded and armed insurgency basically drove the Russians out of Afghanistan. Obviously, the similarities are not ones that you should bank on because the terrain, the development in urban areas, etc., is so different. But I think that is the model that people are now looking toward. And if there can be sufficient armaments that get in, and they should be able to get in along some of the borders between other nations and Ukraine, and keep the Ukrainian, both their military and their citizen volunteer soldiers supplied, that can continue to stymie Russia. Now, let's be clear that Russia has overwhelming military force. But of course they did in Afghanistan as well. They also brought a lot of air power to Syria. It took years to finally defeat Syria in terms of the insurgencies, the democratic forces, as well as others who battled the Russians, the Syrians, and the Iranians. So if you're fighting for your homeland, you're fighting for your family, you're fighting for your ideals, that's far more powerful than sending in these poor young Russian soldiers who didn't even know where they were going until they crossed the border and...
Nalial tulolo hirad Clinton labedia mukanteng. Itolmimbe America, Angleterre, Germany, anin bankol ming beka furinyole kamine for G8 anin G7 itollem bankol ti mini alonko itolle democracy londi indi itollem bankol ti fana mini lata ko dunia be sambalaning na fulolela yani bari ibalanta ngam mini la kibaro sambanali yanang mini mu Russianolti aning China, North Korea, mini alon ko man kafu itolla nyen capitalism kono anila nyen democracy ming ya janjandi dunia kono mini alon ko wolmal la wala wolfana ye fansun ko le muta itolla ta minna ko hadama dingol nyanta tala wala nyama so wala man joini itolla nyen NATO ning America la kafu nyolola. So bedamin to be natara yentol allow num frita isaje coming kanyang player li nyaming nse wol fananta sambananka player li den altol fanansa alamoy nyin karafulol bela alsa understand minatina nyin kelo fango be caring ana kuma sita nyaming yaje because nali American ning NATO tal moiteng aning America la politician ol minimum ta ko Hillary Clinton mimbe di amola teng aliye woltal moy a betia telephone am pro aliye Putin ta moy yajel aliye China ta moy aliye Indian ol fana moy ika mem fo nyin kuoto yajel anin South American countries all min yalon ko wol fana ni Russia la be nyokoto aliye tulolo wol fana na dalilo mo muneti puri ni Russia e tara nyokan ani minati na fana Russia be cool min keka wol fana be wo justify kan because hani tata na Africa fangoto ya jibe ye Africanol jibe bi bebe min foka about Ukraine ni Russia la kuoto ibajela leko wol jamabe la den Russia la kan because Africa fana keta continent la te mi yalanko mar Russia jaay nang ay na continent toto mar Russia jaay interfere na baluo kono at all bar biringam fansoto anin saintema nyin neto anin America to lebe interfere kan Africa kono yaje batal mine ben kambi indu tolla ka fon tolla Africa anin saintema hani sain ntol majen ganyeta daminto yajel bari tolbe itolla ganyebe continue kan wolem ntolla taro ntolla sembo itolla wolem itolla lafikoti bawo biri joya nata Africa kan wato mene tol tubabol le nata ikanna mol muta ike sambana nja wotumo itol man ila technology man ware man masingol soto be dokol kala minna dokol mini yalonko ibe ila banku dingol balundi la wala nyam so nalia jibe biring joya be keri wato mina nin tubabol ye mo fingol muta ibuka musu kebal muta ye sambana ibuka keba kotol muta ye sambana bari funding kel min be bambanding if asol be bambanding ika wala muta Africa kono ye sambana yene nafe baniye nafe buke ke fenti fo ke do kundi ila kunkol kono yajel wala bela do fengol dola bar biri tata foye masingol soto wato minna wo masingol nata ye wo hana madingol la place volta hana madingol ka do ko min keye ila plantation ol kono sako America biri yo wo masingol soto kumasita ka badali ke nyatile wo mo fingol la kotenke ke ta ke batandi America banko kan bata mi yalonko hani bi mo fingol me fansoto no Africa kono indu tolle wo mo fingol ta ifote fangola ye bonde Africa ye mamol ni mumol bonde Africa ye sambanan wol me fanjed lata fo America bar watol sototale mini yalonko biri wojo ya fango banda wo mo fi wo jongol ye fansoto wol tatale America kono je foy satel ta mini yalonko tol African descendant tol doro na beje ye wo satel ta ye deda ye bil foy tambita tubabol fangotala indu yaje koy tol mo fingol dam ma dorone wo satel ta ya loy fangoli wo satel advanced foy sening American tubabol be sirinda mento be kanyanta but tubab ko yol yemine kela itu imurute kan wo sate kan yo wo sate betinya ya jani fobi wo America mo fingol la wo sate bi wo to wo dorone be keden social media kono nse min jibe no nga tandi nyol bar walla taro amantara je hanesai bi newo Africanol da mal fango jibe hane min yalon ko keta koditi yoti wo banko kan American musicianol jibe American athletic sol jibe American basketball ye la sport wo sport makam na ful bale bondi la banko kan bari mo fingol minika tara wo sport sol nyato ika wo millionol mini beta ika dila aliye mo fin jamale je min tata mo fingol be siaren America damento fuare yabe damento itata ye la wona fulol ta yake wo fuarol kono ye factory na feje ye kuol kije mimbe mo fingol la fuare ya talala America banko kan a mansoto en bi mota folanya ko e kamin foto nyante bi ni tata America ibe segregation o min tarlaji itatar la dunia dula do indu tolle ko ka democracy le force dunia kono birin wo Americano wulte tata nyapi Iraq kan inin Britain anin this NATO min be yalan ko bi itolle be Ukraine ning Russia la cool justify kan Hillary Clinton min bota diamo la sainteng mbota la data mimfo altol be ya moy la nyim video kon wo Hillary Clinton wato akema be mararing America la tumomen George Bush be mararing America la tumomen Tony Blair be mararing Britain la wato min wo wato le kelo wulindi arabol kan ye Libya tinya ye Iraq tinya Syria haina be tinyareng neaje bi Syria man turutumbum Russia min dabeji Israel hanna inim Palestinianol birintol mawulu wolbe nyola ibe tilimbali ya kele kan nadiata Israel wati o watinna yela misailol ta ye tindi ibe boyla bungol lekan ika boy bungol kanyamin dindingol ka faje nyamin musol ka faje nyamin bi wo mu dinding kilingol ni musu kilingol lebe faka Russia ba mineyatinna ntolman Israel ni Palestinian kuolje nying neto e wuli wol yeta mitino le komi ye mitino min ke Ukraine ye tonya fo Israeli soldier ko ito ninjine mu nanele be tema amad right puru ke la itolla jorangol itol ye sembo soto nyaaw nyanna bi Russia be wala ni Ukraine be wala nyama so ninyin tuba bol mam wuli yellow Israel ning Palestine na accord itol tuba kilingol le wulte tata Iraq go banko be betiare nu nyame na fulo be bulo ila hadamadi ya be betiare ila banko kan dindingol bita kan school anyama jata kende a bela banko kan bi ta yeta wo Iraq jibe nying American ning Angleterre nin neto yo wo banko ti nyame fo Iraqi sol manke hadamadingol Libya nol manke hadamadingol biri beta wod lal bom la imalanko hadamadingol mini be woto wala be Ukraine be so nyini manke molti mini nyanta folantolie ko ika hadamadi yale justify Russia kan en wala yati nabi yentol fanan ta yen control mbuka Russia TV soto no kotenk hani YouTube anin Facebook ninta tanga kuma be kuma tofo isen na video ta yeta ye block nyene yati nantol Africanol being na programo follow wala purunga nyayale ngajibe ntol mujumalete nsenam fan soto no ni tata na bankol kambi yajibe harama dingol min yalanko nganna bankol do wolle blokono wol fanam be nidia minna ntolien na banko kan wotole bajala ko ntol harama dingol atutan tolle bulu saing katun jikita feo fenna I am failed including na lual na karangol min be ngeke dunia la kuo buka bamfola but janni be dunia fola e kalon ne folon woto sena na molkan yenafo indumbe wo dinkirale to bi ndol hada madingol lebe wulla lafta farindiro mi nangake ay nanan ndo wo falindiro mba kala nyaadile ndol lebe sonna bi nga kacha nga jibe na banko kata nyame arama barobe tola sain but I mem fala toto malon Gambia dingjelle ya kalamuta arama baroe mem foko ate dananyen sanji lulola so exactly sa dawda e me minken na mansa kundato ya jamme me minke APRC e maro minken na sanji muang anim fula baro nyaabe wala baro fana nyaabe wala kan yaje ate fana lafta na banko maralale sanji muang wala min seyata wodi barbi ni ajibe Gambia be situation o minto danyino be kolayari nyamin kunun ko mbata moyla ko base mburo futata $15 le sai femmi yalon ko karifula ko man to mbafula Greater Banjul area ko mburo be bola $7 la ina $10 sain kunun onte ka moy ko base mburu kungo mu dalas tanil lulu lede nyin son karo kanana ye mani boto dajibe ye farinya boto dajibe ye sukur boto dajibe nyine nyanta tinnala ntol Gambia nol ngam fanjibe mi mutonyati nga wofo nga bara wola banko titala no teng nga na banko di molla quartier fayo sita nga fatam fanso bajeje wo fatam fansa ba ko la nikuya ba natana minketa wo quartier fay nyati mbota wo kono wo president o multa nata loko tenke abe kabala ate wo election o win nyamin wo kaba mang da woto fanan ay kaba la fa kata ndiko abe na banko abe mela wo maralale which means nyin sanji lulo minga ya wina mang hakilo bira woso to doron hakilo tata nyato le kotenke ko saying instead of sanji tang mba maralale sanji tan ni lulu sanji muang anil lulu sanji tan saba pi baroke mira wala nyama barinta ma balandia e mira wala nyama de momon dunia diate e be mira la wala nyama barasa hakilo tu bake a lonko abe hanama dingol le marakan ni sanji lulu ya wati sanji tay ya wati abe taka nyamin sanji tan ni lulo ta wati la because nyimbata mi ngaje Gambia nama muruko ma fa kala fa molbe findila ate mela fang ibe mol jele be findila bi ni mole microphone ta journalist ta tata mbedol kay ka mol interview ordinary mol interview albe wo jela le mbe min fo kan saing mom min ka bo mol da kono alba jela le mbe min fo kan bankola koleya ordinary mol ya kala mutale indu ba fo kan ne saing nim ku man keje manza kunna man ku keje wo foro wole be problème ona fela mol ba fola wo be benna dawodan to doron ibe mol jele be fintila banda so nimbaro la manza kunda nyamenta ibe wo mol le jibela ibe tala news le every day ika jibe banku dingol be mim fokan ibe min kumbokan ye bori ke woto min kete la domorolti ila dañinol manza kunda ya jibe ibe taxol min be kolekan gambianol bulokono ngam mansa ya dila wala kam yesi ya jibe ibe fengol da control la nyaadile natara fengol kabo bantale tol mansa kunda man sembo soto pour ya control woto ye fero jibe be wo fengol tale be da ibe balan na nyaadile pour ya dum banko kan den ye banko la resources o ta yaadi banku dingol la ya jibe harama dingol la dañino be fe ala fengol minto ya dundi woto banko kan ngam fambalundi en dunta ngaje wonyanta dunna agriculture la kon na budgeto ka talanya soto na house kono sawo sang wo budgeto nyanta change la drastically kodo min beka janjanga Mexico half of that money akata agriculture la kono yes
please can I have that blanket?
can you what
Please can I have that blanket?
yes where's your blanket
Oh, we're not in the machine.
no you cannot have that that's in the wash Buhari yeah go upstairs and bring another blanket madingol nyinna munna problem ode endum fonga kalamuta roke folom na balwo be nyaadile woton sena long ko hadama dingote ku keno la balwo kono fona ya la balwo londi folom isajen se ka funyola ngaji bembe wo balwo mba solfla nyaadile ay botu babol bulo kono ay bo bantalankol bulo kono na balwo etaram fango bulo kono na banko kan
people were screaming at them and they realized they were in
Clinton
Ukraine. So I think we have to watch this carefully. We have to provide sufficient military armaments for the Ukraine military and volunteers. And we have to keep tightening the screws.
Keep tightening the screws, she says. Keep them supplied, according to the Times. That's exactly what the administration is doing. What's interesting is Biden seems hesitant to do this, but Hillary clearly isn't. With Biden's declining faculties, many of us have wondered who behind the scenes is really running things. I don't know. Maybe it's Hillary Clinton calling the shots. It wouldn't surprise me. She certainly has publicly hated Putin since at least 2008, obviously more so after 2016. Many believe she was robbed of her turn to be president and would love to get revenge. So maybe she's pulling an Edith Wilson or a Nancy Reagan. Wouldn't be the first time we had a secret president, but that's pure speculation. Hillary isn't wrong about people fighting for their homeland fiercely, but many of these fighters are not volunteers. They're conscripted. Unlike Afghanistan, many Ukrainians are ethnic Russians. Ukraine was part of the USSR, and it does sit right up on Russia's border. So these factors make Russia less likely to give up like they did in Afghanistan. Also, with all of the immense propaganda on both sides, it's nearly impossible to know how well either side is really doing. And one thing we do know is very few people in our government benefit from a peace agreement being reached between Ukraine and Russia. Hillary Clinton could finally be getting her revenge on Putin for what she perceives as him costing her the presidency. The military-industrial complex is happy to engage in another proxy war that requires an endless, profitable stream of American-made weapons being shipped abroad without costing American lives. Even Biden gets to look like a winner for seemingly pushing back against escalating the war, but escalating to full-on NATO or U.S. engagement probably wasn't in the game plan of any of the actual decision makers anyway. They want a proxy war, and they're getting a proxy war. But the more aware of this we are as the American people, the more we can push back on our leaders and demand they behave like the nation we think we are, or at least we want to be. People are sick of endless aggression, regime changes, and proxy wars. People want us to focus on building our own country and investing in our own people. People are tired of us being the world police, providing military defense to an ever-growing list of nations most people have never even heard of. If we must be involved, people want us to be peacemakers and solve world crisis rather than create them. Yet here we are, pushing a nation toward destruction on our behalf because we love nothing more but to see Putin bled dry. So I would love to see us start to negotiate some peace, but it doesn't sound like from any of the reports going on in the administration that they're actually even discussing that as much. I mean, I hear some reports like, well, maybe we'll start to. But at this point, they're like, which weapons? You know, and it's like, okay, we can't give planes, but let's do drones. You know, I mean, they're kind of deciding which weapons are we going to supply Ukraine in this rather than encouraging a negotiation between the two. Russia isn't just going to leave on their own.
Yeah, I'm happy to see it. Bleed them dry. Personally, I don't care. I think the collapse of the Putin regime would be a positive development for humanity. Obviously, we can't directly go to war with them or do anything to directly cause that, nor should we. It's dangerous and reckless. But Putin could prevent this outcome at any time by ending this war, and which he should do, and I hope he does do. But he should, if he putting the pressure that the more disastrously this goes, the more likely his regime is to collapse. Seems like that's a fine possibility to leave out there.
The problem is that the structures in Russia that created Putin would still be there. So you'd get another Putin-type thing.
Right, you could get a more incompetent, less autocratic, less tyrannical person.
Maybe. So,
but I mean, when have there been, just a real quick question, Robbie, when have we had a regime change or a toppling of a government that actually resulted in a positive?
The fall of the Soviet Union was a positive for a little while, before Putin came back to power. I would say it was a positive. I think the gradual trajectory of Chinese government from up until recently was positive, from Mao to Deng Xiaoping, etc., and then it's sadly reversed itself. But some governments do get better, right? Sometimes better people come to power after. But I mean, I agree with you that it is not worth the U.S. government intervening directly, or I mean, I agree with you generally about proxy wars. Just the difference with this one is that this is a war that Russia has started. So I think its government should.
Anyo wulo. Ikaf lono nye media platform auto nyaming. Ike da yele ka nyeng kuma sifavo. ika jahal hadama dingo to wole nyama bitu nyewuli yale yatin na ibuka lafi ntulolo Russia la kumolla ibe memfola ninsena talano news o fangoto so America Angleterre NATO ibebe tenne ila nyewuli ya kumol doro ikalafi ntol membe la bankol kan tulolo wodoronna so wale yatine ka news ta ka block puru akana futantol because na natantol benna hadamadi yale use la ngantulolo karafulo bela ngalo membe kere ate moya ba fula nyaadi le ko Russia le nyinkelo start so fefe mang hakilo soto imam politiko long imalo nyintuba bolbe tama kanyaming iba mira la ko tonya Russia le be kukurungo kekan tonya hadamadi ngol fa kan dawdanto momanya na wotala ya support because ala doron nek awot hano bari min kala cause fana ika wala jibe min ka tinna moka futa wonna neto inyanta wala jibe la itol American news powerful news all min yalon ko itol be dunia kono bi ibenna television alto ibenna news to na social media alto ndat ntol public all ntol multata dawadanto isalanko nyim news media ibentar la jele because minem birim politician ol lembang president ol lembang ye fan komandi feo fenna itol la taro nyin dunia kono wote keno la fentina tarantol mol mang tare koto so dunia la hadamba dingol doran nyim mol bebe wolle fe nyola ibe kumo sifa be folanye puru ibe maralanto la nyaming so nyindam kuoltin tolka la finka min fintindi dunia kam puru ning dunia mol sa kachano bar min kalan tol dol jahal walam ntol gambianol bi na taranya be nyaadile birin na banko kan nambang ndenga miranga karango min beke tubabol bulu bi nyanta kala mutala ko tubabol natan tol kan na pur kalam filindi kam kan tol bulandi tol noma wala ya sabu indum binte be sirin tubabol kono nyaawo nyanna ningan na banko jibe nka wodoron ne jeje momon ninga jibe abe min ke kan abe min fo kan abe katola kati min kan wo man ke fengoti mi yalonko abe wo hada gambiano talale aya londe a fangoye ay tara jikiringa fangol nka feo fenjo wala nyinti kontol la jiko tubabol bantalam fangol la abe continue la le everyday nka wala je nimma woje mbe mole je la mimbe tarla lori ngabe kumo fola mi yalonko abatandilan tollako mbe minto amam betiya wala mararo min benkan na banko kan amam betiya isaje tolla karango ya tandi tollako womini be maradi na bankole be min be ke kan amanke siloti ibentol banko dingol kanandila nyaadile bari isaje wobe wo fula daminto mul fango tinala fango ya support je nyina muna problem oti mbadingol and unless mbenga nyin kalamuta nga wuli nga lowala ate bola tirimbali ya warata na banko kan bakele bareta jala nga fo wotilimbali ya be bondela nyaadile boys be careful. Afrika la kuwa balafa warata bake. Niajibe ya kuwa balafa warata bake. Barintol Afrika nol buka fenke. Mimba tandila kompareta le purka falindiro na fen na kontinente odo. But fomo kilin ning ferosi na adorong. Fomo kilin ning ferosi na wo fero. Kolbe kumasi la jela. mo fingo la history ni ajibe a jam fatale bi fango mben kawandila do mben tulolo kan kawandila do la Senegalelem abe min fo kam molye wala misilum ol ye mo fingo kumasita wato minna ila involvement mo kumasita wato minna islamo kono so I start kila sallallahu alaihi wasallam la wato la birate abama muso min be kataringa la min kama koy ala baluwo kono tiliwo tiling fowo muso e kono ta min ketana na kilati sallallahu alaihi wasallam a wuluta fo wato min na fota a wululalla a bama fango fa muso min maratala so wala wo mono mume be abe wala explain kan ni ajibe biri wo wato len tol mo fingol nga jibe nga mine akif anem mine ketan tolla birin nam wo wato mo findube nyaadile kana futa fo bila wato le bajela ko mistake ta dulale to indu nemma muru nga wo mistake o bondi mbe moyla mara ro konole nyimara ro min ba kono Africa ba kono ndol fongole sa bondi mfongol so nemma unite no nga ke kilenti nga wo bonding kan woto al nga nyota nga nyo how to call it nga nyo kalamutandi silol mbe fambondi la wo kono nyaadile asatara hanim ma unite bar momo ila banko kan ibe ko le start la je mi yalonko abete la dependency bondi la tubabol kan na murundi Africa wo banko kan den ninga woke fo wat osita mbe nga je ko say mbe boto tubabol la mararo konole mbe semberim fangola nasoto woton tol africano damal sena jibe mbe kudol tala mbe sindila nyola nyami woton sa jibe Africa bankol mini yalonko jabi je ntol sa jibe bankol mini ye jaman taradaminto wolbe dañinol tala nyaadile ye futandi jalbe daminto bara satara fanan alay fengol min din na Africa banko kan asatara nga tubabol da bondi jelantol African damal kawo ku fengol ta nga sin ka jibe nin tubabol be wokela nyami woton sa jibe natarantol nyim fengol min be ka bon tol la banko koto tubabol la baluwote tano wo fengol koma woton sa jibe ntol nin tubabol be mun business sifale kala min batinala jutun na yate tarlaje barbiya katanya min jutun na ya bale bije bawo tubabol le kane kantol dictate hanin na mansa kunda fango katanya mi tolle ba folantoli na mansa kunda betala nyaadile nyennem ko wolte min yalon ko nyanta wolle jibe lambadingol nemma wo jibe ngata nyami mbe mela wolale. It is high time for Africa to see where we have gone wrong. Then we try and make the wrong right. We have been talking about Africa's unity for a very long time. But what I want to tell Africa is this: time is not waiting for us. If we want our children to be independent, our children's children to be independent, it is us who have to take the sacrifice that we need to take today. And what sacrifice do we take as today's African, especially this generation? We are the one who have to say that we can live without depending on the outside world, which is America and Europe. We have to believe in ourselves. And to do that, we have to start now. First of all, let us start feeding ourselves. Let us realize how we feed our families every day. There are African countries that are doing well because their national food is coming from their own crops. But those African countries that live on products that come from outside Africa, which is American rice, Chinese rice, everything that we order from the outside of Africa, it's something that we have to learn to be without it, or replace it with that of we grow in Africa. And we have to start to grow things in Africa that we can survive on, that can replace rice, flour, that we order from outside world to bake our breads. Let us find crops that we can grow and produce flour to bake bread. Then, if we don't have electricity, we can build local bakeries, heat it with firewood, and bake our bread. Let us grow foods that is equal to rice, like the Nigerians are doing, like the Ghanaians are doing, yam, plantains. All these things they grow in order to let us grow lots of them so that everybody can have a bit of it. Those who eat rice every day, reduce it to some of this food. Cassava, yam, sweet potatoes. We can grow all this in Africa. Why are we ordering millions of tons of rice into Africa? All these mighty fresh rivers we have in Africa, why is Africa not exporting rice to other parts of the world? These are the things we have to look at today and make it happen. But if we want true independence, we Africans have to work, starting from feeding ourselves. Then when we put that in order, then we can turn into others. Education system, how we educate our children. Are we going to continue to educate our children in school? Or are we going to put skills in the schools? Teach our children, even without education, they know how to live their life, how to survive in Africa by having the knowledge how to process the nature that Allah or God has given us in order to depend on it like our ancestors did. Our great ancestors were living on their own with the nature that Allah and God had given them. They were living like that until the white man stepped in Africa. So it is our duty today for all of us to go back to that history, find out how our ancestors were living before the white man came, how they were surviving, how they keep themselves the way they were until the white man come into our land. Then we go back and start from there. If they were using the earth and the rain and the natural water that God has given us, or Allah has given us, let us do the same thing that our ancestors were doing. This way, if we start to feed ourselves, then we will be in a position to say no to number one, which is the food we depend on. We were surviving before the outsider came and say that there is hunger in our continent. God has given us enough to be independent. Why are we not independent? This is what we have to ask each other. And my advice to my brothers and sisters in Africa, I know what we have to do to be independent. So, the ball is in our court. If we play it right, we will be independent. If we don't touch the ball at all, we will continue depending on the outside world. They will be coming to tell us how to live our life in Africa. Our presidents who are listening to this part of the world, we put them there. Whatever they do to us is from us. So if we, the Africans, want to change the narrative, we will change it, and we will start changing it now. God has given us everything we need to live independently. It is now time for us to say that we will sacrifice for our children and those that will come after them. To do that, we will start to sacrifice whatever we are doing today for those children. And the way to do it is, let's start from growing what we eat and eating what we grow. That will lead us to that independence that we are yearning for. I thank you all, my dear brothers and sisters. I am stopping here for now. Until next time we meet again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good morning, my sister, 𝗪𝗲𝗀𝗃𝗃 Inimbara Bake. Guys, I name that 𝗪𝗶𝗃𝗃𝗏𝗃. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.